Hi guys, and welcome to my review for the audio Hekili. I know this is an old IEM by IEM standards, let's put it that way, but it's an IEM that a good friend of mine, Gustavo, wanted me to review. He's also the owner of the Anoli VX, by the way, and he wanted me to review it, and for that I thank him, because I actually never got to buy. I wanted the Lokai, but it never happened, and then the Hekili just it never happened, period. Anyway, before I start, I'm just going to introduce what I have here, set the stage so you guys know what's going on. Our audio Our, now discontinued, 1+6 8mm dynamic driver, 2 BAs on the mids, 4 BAs on the highs. It's here for reasons that some will know, but the main reason why it's here, it's because it is probably my reference, or one of my references in terms of a hybrid, and I am capable of playing way above its price point. It was sold for $380. We'll get into more details just now. Okay, next to it, Geek World GK100, crazy configuration of a IEM. It's got 3 DDs, 2 BAs, and 2 double piezos. Technically, I mean, crazy the way that they've been able to just put everything together. Nothing outrageous ultimately, but well put together. And it's here because I really enjoy this IEM. This one and the MS5 are probably two of the IEMs that I've tried lately that have surprised me the most, because they are, well, relatively complex. But both of them have set out to do what they wanted to do, in my opinion, really well. And on that corner over there, I have the AudioSense AQ7 Insight, 1+6 as well. It is here because it is probably the best example of what I will be now talking about next, and it's actually anyway, let me just get started, and then we'll break things down. Okay. Audio Hekili. What can I share with you? What do I know? It's a DIY IEM, in the sense that it's made by one single gentleman, and you can see that it's made in a very DIY manner by certain aspects, as like the nozzle, for example. It's just a straight tube, no finish. The way that the tubing inside for the various drivers is, let me see if I could be so good if I actually could see if maybe it's a little bit difficult to focus, but the way the tubing there is finished is also a little bit more on the archaic manner, a little bit more, let's say, handmade manner. But other than that, I mean, the shells are nicely built. They look good. It looks smart. It is a good looking IEM. It fits well. No issues with fitment. Really, I can't really fault it in any aspect, other than you look at it and you can see that it's something that's fully hand built, and there's nothing wrong with fully hand built. I mean, the audio is also fully hand built, but you can see that there's a little bit extra attention to detail. Okay, there's it's just a little slightly more polished. But anyway, it's a 1+7. I'm not too sure how the breakdown of the BAs is working, but one thing I do know is that the DD does its work up to about 200 hertz, and then from there onwards it's all BA. In terms of how the bass is done, it is kind of, it's got that kind of variations vibe going for it, although it doesn't go as, it doesn't rumble as low, or It's got that kind of a curve, or the same kind of a curve that you see, for example, in the QKZ Khan, that you see as well in the Truth Years Zero, that very quick drop of the bass. And ultimately what that means is there is decent mid-bass slam, but there is a distinct separation between DD and BAs. And that's the subject that I was now going to start talking about, which is coherence. My good friend Paul Wasabi, a couple of months ago, he reviewed my IEM that I did with XINHS, and I was happy that when he did that he was able to pick up on something which I really tried hard to try and do, which is, it doesn't matter if you have 1 BA, 2 BAs, 10 BAs, 20 BAs. What is important is that they are matched correctly with each other, and that they marry as well, if you have a dynamic driver, in a manner such that it all comes together as one driver. And that's the beauty of a single driver, that be it not only at home speakers. If you guys have ever had the chance of listening to a Tannoy, Monitor Gold, a Westminster, a Canterbury, if you guys have ever had the chance of listening to the older Kef stuff, or if you had the chance to listen to, for example, an Orelco 1265, some of you might know what that is, others might will not. But it's a dual cone speaker made by Philips. If you listen to a single driver, there's a magic about that which is very difficult for multiple driver speakers, or in this case IEMs, to emulate. And that emulation, or that copying, that ability to do that it boils down to how well the crossover network is designed, and so on and so forth. Obviously, in a IEM we have constraints, because physical constraints don't allow us to take advantage of all the things that we can possibly do. So things have to be done in an even more intelligent manner. And when you have 7 BAs and you're marrying them with a DD, you want that marriage to be done in the most smoothest of manners, so that everything comes across as one single driver. And the reason why I've got the AQ7 over there is precisely because that's the perfect example of how things should not be done. Because if at low volume, or at a volume up to about, let's say, 60%, you do not notice so much that matching, and you do not notice that lack of coherence, once you exceed that, you very quickly start noticing everything falling apart. And you start noticing the BAs that are doing the mids, and the BAs that are doing the highs, and the BAs that are doing the high highs. And it's just very, it's very, well, first of all, disconcerting, because we're talking about an IEM there that I've seen as high as $400. So when you pay that kind of money, you want things to be done in a very mature, very upscale manner. That lack of matching is what you find in a cheap IEM. And for example, the CCA HM20, it's beautifully done. It's a 1+7, and for $60, if they did it, I'm sure AudioSense could also do it over there. And they just perhaps didn't try hard enough. That's my opinion. That doesn't detract, and please keep this in mind. That's not a criticism in a negative way. It's a positive criticism, a constructive criticism, because I like AudioSense. Those that follow me, that know me, I'm a big fan of AudioSense. I'm a real diehard fan of AudioSense. I've got all of their IEMs basically. I've got some of them even doubles. Okay, but that's me because I'm crazy. I've got a mental disorder. So I like AudioSense, and I want them to grow and improve and become even better at what they do, because you listen to the likes of an AQ4 and it's an amazing IEM. Very nicely done bass. The marriage between the bass and the mids and then the high, everything is beautifully done. Why didn't they do the same thing in the AQ7? Already the original AQ7 wasn't the best of them. And this one, being an evolution, being a pro version, being a plus version, being whatever you want to call it, you would have expected that step forward to have been done. And it's a pity, because, like, again, I say, I like AudioSense. And over there, you notice that lack of matching. In the audio Hekili, it's not as bad. No way, it's not as bad. But it's there. And that is ultimately its only flaw for me. It's the fact that, well, it's not the only flaw, but that's its biggest flaw for me. It's the fact that up to a certain volume level, and I would say that up to about 70, maybe even 80% of volume, things are very well matched. You know, you don't really notice that BA timbre, that metallicness of the BAs. You don't notice. Everything is very nice, and then all of a sudden everything just goes sour. And there lies as I was saying before, the biggest difficulty, which is a BA. You know, you want it's got that resolution, that detail, that ability to go and fetch all the micro nuances and so on and so forth. But if you emphasize too much that ability, or if you let that ability shine too much, then you will inevitably bring with it that BA timbre. If you don't let it shine enough, then it's kind of pointless of having it. And you know, but on the plus side, everything sounds more coherent. So finding that balance, that's what distinguishes a good tuner from a bad tuner. That's what distinguishes a well-tuned IM from a badly tuned IM. Okay. So bass. Now breaking down the various frequencies here. Bass. It's well done. It's well executed. It's got a nice weight to it. It's not as when you see the graph and when you hear it, they don't exactly match. You by looking at the graph, you would think there's got a lot more bass, but it doesn't. And I can tell you straight away that, for example, the Awur, in terms of bass, eats the Hekili alive. Eats it. More rumble, more extension, fuller, everything. If I had to put let me put it to you this way. If this is a 10-inch subwoofer or a 10-inch woofer here, that's an 18-inch by comparison. But that's an 18-inch pro woofer because it's got speed, it's got everything. Okay, so in terms of the bass, the Awur is absolutely killing the Hekili. More extension, more everything, and graphically it doesn't look like it. And I'll show you the graphs afterwards. You'll understand. Then there's that matching of the bass with the mids, which unfortunately they didn't let the DD carry on a little bit longer. They made it flat very early, so it's very quick into not bleeding into the mids. But on the downside is it loses a little bit of that warmness that the bass gives to the mids, and you notice straight away that coldness of the mids very early on. Okay, which is a pity because then you lose that said coherence, that said coming together as one single driver that we want to try and as much as possible obtain. But that aside, the mids, honestly, I don't find them in any way offensive or badly done or badly executed. Female voices are good, male voices are good, instruments sound correct. There's good tonality, there's good timbre. Everything is, for me, well done. Apart from when really pushed, then it starts kind of falling apart a little bit and showing its cracks along the seams, which is a pity. Because you know what, if the gentleman that designed it had just a little bit lower, that's all, just a little bit lower, or then the energy level of the mids and the highs I'm referring to, obviously, or then given it a little bit more bass to match the rest of the frequency, this would have been a very, very different sounding IM. Okay. Highs, plenty detail, loads of detailed retrieval capability, all the twinklies and the sparkles that you want, and so on and so forth. In that aspect, this is far superior to the Awur. So there's more detail here than there is in the Awur, but I'll get to that in a second as well. And I'm only saying to the Awur, but I will say it with all of them, please. This is not me going for specifically for one or the other. But I just mentioned the Awur because I talked about the bass of the Awur. So highs, they more than enough highs. Everything is well executed. there is, especially when the volume starts going higher, then that loss of composure. There's not really a hint of sibilance or anything, but it just gets very intense and becomes very cold. It loses that warmth that is again the preferred. You listen to the highs of an Anoli VX, for example, or you listen to the highs of a Neon Pro from our audio, or you listen to the highs of the Duno SA6 MK2, and your jaw will drop, because they are all BA sets to start with, and the mids and the highs, but everything is just so well executed. I mean, honestly, it's unreal. And it's not that they couldn't do it, they could do it yet. It's just, Anyway, with the regards to the technical aspects of the Hekili, it's got a decent enough soundstage. It's a soundstage which is very much dependent on the tip. And here lies one of the areas where, well, those that have it and that like it probably will have picked up on the same thing as I did. But this is an IM that changes dramatically with the tips that you use. If you use the wide bores like Gustavo sent me, it has advantages in terms of the soundstage and so on and so forth. But it boosts the area there of 6, 7, 8K. So it showcases even earlier that said and mentioned before, BA timbre, tonality, metallicness, coldness. If you use the KB ear 07, which is the medium size, or the yellow ones as well, the large size, okay, either one will work. I use these ones because it's got a long nozzle, so I could ram it into my ear canal deeper. It reduces that said area that has become boosted previously, becomes way more coherent, completely different sound, loses a little bit of soundstage, but completely different sound. So in my opinion, more pleasurable here. With the TRN T-tips, or with the Clarion, the TRI Clarions, or with the Softears UCI, you basically get the same result, which is a further reduction on what is over here. Everything almost plateaued after the pin again. Everything is almost a straight plateau across, and probably these are the ones that will these or similar to these, the T-tips, will probably be the ones that would please most people, I would think. Although, like I said, be it with the KB ears or with these or the other ones similar to them, I was happy with it. As for the foam tips, the funny thing is, although graphically, and I'll show you the graph afterwards, you'll understand, the foam helps somehow reduce that metallicness, and it sounds, for me personally, the first choice would be the foams. Second choice, complies. Second choice would be either the 07s or the TRIs, whichever ones I had in hand. That might lose just a little bit of detail, but it gains in that smoothness, in that ability to everything be just silky smooth, and for that reason alone, I think it's worth it. So yeah, guys, as I said, soundstage fine, imaging is fine, detail retrieval is very good. Tone and timbre and tonality are okay up to a certain volume level as well. There's really not much that I can point other than the fact that there is this premise from the beginning that the tuning be very, very, very grand, very big, that it shows more than what it is, but that means that then it doesn't scale as well as it could scale, and it will showcase its negative aspects early on. That's really the only flaw that I see in the Hekili. Other than that, it's fine. I mean, it's $300. It's adequate. Okay. Now compared to what I have here in front, I'll start with straight away with the AQ7 because it's going to be the easiest comparison. It's a far superior IM to the AQ7. That also has a very similar kind of bass, but it's even more more relaxed in the mid bass as compared to the Hekili. So even I mean, honestly, the DD being there, or you having a BA for the bass, I think the BA for the bass would probably have been better, because that DD, although it's a 10mm, it sounds like a 6. You know, it leaves a little bit to be desired, and it's a pity because the hardware is there. It just needed a little bit more of attention on detail in terms of the tuning. So comparing these two, that's no comparison. This is a superior IEM to that, period. End of story. Compared now to the Yaour audio, and as I've mentioned before, based on the Yaour audio, it's far superior. Treble here is superior up to a certain point in volume, but then the treble there becomes better. And in mids, they again are very matched, very matched. Ultimately, the best is the Yaour. Why? One, because it's more coherent, so everything is better matched. So you lose the detail on the highs here as compared to the Hekili, but what you've gained is impeccable coherence. You do not distinguish between the BAs and the DD, you know, and that for me is a plus point that you know makes this straight away be my choice. Even though I lost a little bit of highs, which is in essence the only real thing that I would have liked the Yaour to have a little bit more. It makes me go for the Yaour over the Hekili because of that coherence, that matching, that making sure that everything is well integrated with each other, which was what I basically wanted to do and what I was able to do with my IEM that I made with XINHS, and that was only 1+2. The mids, this thing scales through the roof amazingly well, so it maintains itself always very composed. If anything, actually, it will, even at higher volumes, be able to showcase better, or not showcase, it will be able to overcome maybe a little bit of its flaws in terms of that little bit lack of energy in the highs. And then in terms of technicalities, overall, again, it is a superior IEM to the Hekili. Not a huge difference. I mean, the soundstage, I would give it to the Hekili. The imaging, I would give it to the Yaour. Detailed retrieval, I would give it to the Hekili up to a certain volume level. Then above that, to the Yaour. Timbre and tonality, the Yaour. Period. So yeah, I mean, you know, this ultimately in the technicalities comes out in front, but it's not a huge difference. It's all down just to the simple fact that the matching of the drivers here hasn't been done properly, so it just loses out, period. That's a better tune. That's not, actually, let me rephrase that. That's not a better tune. That's a much better tuned IEM. It's been tuned in a much more mature manner than what was tuned here, and I don't think it's because of lack of knowledge on the side of this gentleman here. Actually, I don't. I think it was just, like I said, his design premise was just to make it sound grand, to make it sound bigger than what it is. And then finally compared here to the Geek World, the GQ100, and if I take the Geek World and I use, you know, the stock tips that it has, then as I mentioned in my review, it's a mess. It doesn't sound good. If I use, it's a mess because it becomes overly intense, not in a bad manner, but it's just overly intense, and things don't seem to be matched correctly. If I use the KB ears, these ones here, that's a totally different beasts, completely different. Okay, if I used my T-tips like you see here, and if you actually look carefully, you will see I've modified them. Okay, it's a little mod that I like doing, which is the introduction of a little bit of foam on the tip. Okay, this creates an absolute beast of an IEM. End of story. If there is still any remaining flaw on the GQ100, is that it could do with a little bit more bass, and although graphically it seems like it's got more than enough bass, it's an 8mm driver, but it's an 8mm driver that's been tuned in a different manner to the 8mm driver in the Yaour. So while here the 8mm driver actually sounds bigger than what it is, over here it sounds just like an 8mm driver. It's got loads of quality, plenty quality, mind you, but it just needs it needed maybe a 2 dB extra to just fill it out nicer and be able to match the rest of the frequency range. And in that case, maybe then the foam that I've got inside here would even not be necessary, because basically what the tip is doing is making the post pin again area all the way up to about 10 more plateaued, and then the foam is just bringing down the energy down just a smidge to match it better with the bass. So comparing the GQ with a Hekili, the GQ is for me, a better IM. There was really the only area where the Hekili is slightly better than the GQ100 is in the bass quantity, not quality, bass quantity, a little bit better. And this is already not its forte, but in the bass quantity, it's a little bit more than over there. Quality-wise, the bass of the GQ100 is faultless. It also costs way less money than the Hekili. It's $200 roughly. So yeah, guys, there you have it. I mean, it's I know it's an IM which comes very late in terms of my review or my take on it, but it's a nice IM. It's decent. I can't really say I disliked listening to it, or no, I didn't. I enjoyed listening to it. It's a nice sounding IM, sounds good. It's just, honestly, the biggest flaw is the lack of coherence, the lack of making sure that everything is really put together, matched together nicely, and so that it gives us a nicer sound. I'm hoping that future models will perhaps already take that into account. I'm sure I'm not the only one that thought that. I'm sure there were other people that also agree with what I'm saying. But yeah, that's it, guys. I'll show you now the graphs on this, and we'll take it from there. All right, see you. Hi guys, welcome now to the graph section for the audio Hekili. This is the graph of the audio Hekili, and as I mentioned during the review, I tried various tips. This is the graph with the tips that I got with it, which is some white bores, and straight away that area there that I was mentioning that was further enhanced, which is the like from roughly 4.5 to about 7.5K. Okay, an indicator of perhaps some possibly good soundstage. And yes, with the white bore, it was the one that had the best soundstage, unquestionably. Okay, and then, as I was saying, by looking at this bass curve, you get the perception that you're going to have a nice full bass. Everything sits within 66 to 76, or about 10 dB. So you kind of think, okay, this is going to have a nice full bass. And the reality is, when you actually listen to it, it doesn't sound as full as you would think. I mean, it's flat by 300 hertz, so they've made sure that it was tuned with a very quick fall, so there's no bleed into the mids. A very progressive pin again, picks about 2.5, and then that plateau over there. Anyway, this is the graph with the white bore tip. I then tried the KB Year 07, the blue ones, and for me there was a significant improvement. This peak dropped. The way that this whole area here was done, for me, is at least nicer, more pleasurable to listen to. Everything came closer to being within that 10 dB band, and I just enjoyed it more in this manner. And then I said, hold on, let me now try the T-tips, and the T-tips even further improved upon that by dropping a little bit more the energy here in that 4, 5, 6, 7K area. And further made things sound, for me, more polished up without that typical BA timbre. Okay, and then I tried as well, as I mentioned, the foam tips, and although the foam tips seem like they are graphing worse than the TRNs, let me just put the foams in the TRNs. You can see there's some added energy here somehow, and obviously it has to do with the foam. There seems to be a reduction of that metallicness. Not huge, but you notice it enough to make it smoother sounding. So ultimately, these two were the tips that I would use. Okay, either the foams, the compliers, or then the TRNT tips, or something similar to that. TRI clarions or something like that. Anyway, compared to the apologies. Compared then to the Award Audio Award. Let me see if I can actually make this slightly different color. I'm actually going to put it in black, so it maybe you can see a little bit better. One in black, and make the I think you can see it. Yeah, no, not really. Sorry guys, I'm trying to find here the best color possible. Let me see if this will help. Yeah, that's better. Okay, as you can see, graphically at least, it seems like they both have the same kind of bass. This couldn't be further from the truth. The bass on the Award is phenomenal. It's monstrous by comparison. Okay. I've heard that some people use the term hedonistic for the bass, especially they were referring themselves to the Maestro Mini. Well, I don't find the Maestro Mini to have that crazy bass, but anyway. But if I was to make a similar analogy, yes, the bass of the Award compared to the bass of the Hekili is monstrous. Way more rumble, impact, everything. Okay. Then you can see that the mids are actually done in a very similar manner. Especially with the TRN T-tips, everything is very similar here. From 1 to let's say 7.5, 8K, you can't really say there's a monumental difference. What the difference that does exist is a difference that is caused by the lack of this DD having been more properly matched with the rest of the BAs. And so you feel a disjointed connection here instead of you getting the harmonics of that DD helping out and filling out the sound of the BAs and doing away with that metallicness. Okay. What you do notice, yes, is the Hekili has got more extension and it's noticeable. It has plus points at low volume. Obviously, when volume starts going up, it loses composure and becomes very... it becomes just too energetic. You notice the BA timbre, it's just not pleasurable. Okay, so that's with the Award. And now I'm going to show you with the AudioSense. And the AudioSense is even worse because, you look at this and the AudioSense has got, if you want flat bass, this is flat. There's no bass whatsoever here. This sounds like what happened, Then it's got a very early pin again, very, very early. So things are very forward, and then everything is just up and down all over the place. I'll just leave it alone. It's a very disappointing way of doing things. Everything here could have been done in such a much, much better way. At low volumes, it still is bearable. You can still deal with it and so on and so forth. You could, I guess, EQ to give it a little bit more bass, but that deters the whole purpose, the whole thing behind this. You don't want to EQ anything. You want to see how it sounds as it is. And it's a pity because I like it. I actually used an impedance adapter to see how it would be. And with the impedance adapter, I can actually show you. It actually improved it slightly. I think I've got it here somewhere. No, I don't. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I thought I had the other impedance adapter graph, but I don't. But the impedance adapter basically does is push this pin again forward and kind of helps make this sound just a little bit more, let's put it more coherent. I know I'm repeating myself a lot with that word, but I don't seem to be finding another one that would, be the more adequate terminology. And yeah, as compared with the audio Hekili, there's no comparison. The Hekili just walks all over it in every aspect. So yeah, guys, that's it. It's an interesting sounding IEM. I'm not gonna say it isn't. It is an interesting sounding IEM. It's got positives. It's got some good stuff going for it. Its biggest drawback, in my opinion, is just the fact that they could have maybe still left the energy that they wanted. You could have still left all that energy there, but you could have just tamed it down just a little bit, and I think it would have become a more interesting listen. Or instead of taming this down, or just add a little bit more of bass here, because just for you guys to understand how it is quite deceiving. Let me just show you here this graph quickly before before we go. So bass filter, where is it? Bass filter, bass tip. I think it's this one, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, and now let me just match it up just nicely. All right, there we go. This last graph that I've added here is the graph of the MS5, the HAKUGEI MS5. And by looking at this bass here, you know, and if I put up the Hekili, you would say, oh, the Hekili's got more bass and so on and so forth. Forget it. Forget it. This thing will drill you into next week in terms of, if this thing was a jackhammer, it would be an industrial one. You know, let me put it that way. It has got crazy bass, good quality bass. It slams. It is honestly absolutely amazing, the bass of the MS5. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, this is not about the MS5, it's about the Hekili. And there you have it. As always, like and subscribe. Any questions you guys might have, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my best to answer as quickly as possible. Right? You take care now. Bye bye.